Titanic Talk with Nelson Aspen and Alexandra Boyd. Here we feature stories from the independent documentary Ship of Dreams, Titanic Movie Diaries, and everything else to do with the iconic ship. From James Cameron's epic groundbreaking movie to the history and legacy of Titanic herself. Join us and our special guests as we continue the 25th anniversary celebrations of Titanic. This is your first-class ticket to everything aboard the Ship of Dreams.
I'm Nelson Aspen, and we're back for more Titanic talk with my lovely co-host, Alexandra Boyd, the filmmaker, writer, producer, director of Ship of Dreams, Titanic Movie Diaries, which is wonderful and prominently features a number of Titanic cast members, including our special guest today. Alexandra, will you introduce us?
I will indeed. I am very excited to have with us Amy Gaipa, who all the Titaniacs will know is Trudy Bolt in Titanic. And we have her here as one of the reasons we have the actors in the documentary we made, because she just has a unique and extraordinary story about getting that job and doing that job. Amy, welcome to Titanic Talk.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, and thank you for asking me.
And here we are, 25 years after the fact, 25 years after you were at drama school. That's where you were when you were plucked from obscurity.
Yes.
Plucked, as they say. Tell us a little bit about, I'm going to ask you to read from your diary because, of course, there's a little bit in there about your audition and meeting James Cameron for the first time. But just give us a little bit of a background of your world when this happened to you.
Certainly, I was a student at Circle in the Square Theater School, and I was going for my professional program, sort of continuing on from my undergrad experience. And the casting director, Mally Finn, had called the artistic director of several different schools, like Neighborhood Playhouse and a couple of the other programs in New York, and said, send over a couple students. And so they chose two of us from Circle in the Square, which was a great honor. And I didn't realize until after the fact that they had only sent two of us over. And so I went through that initial sort of typing out. I never auditioned in a hotel before, so that was new to me. I was like, where am I going? What shall I be doing in this hotel? But everything was above board. She's the consummate professional, of course. But no, that was a new experience. Before it'd been giant halls and doing, all these freaking large ass, open calls with everyone around. And so this was really nice to show up, and I had my little picture, and it felt a little chorus line a little bit, because we were like up and down the hallway, and she was just going through and chatting with us and taking pictures and taking our resumes, and so
there were, wait a minute, there were two from your school, but there were many
there were
young women.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was just for Trudy for that typing out day, or if it was just for some of the other roles as well. I wasn't positive of that fact, and so I didn't hear back too soon, but then I did get a call back, and of course in those days didn't have cell phones, so I had to wait till I got home to play my message on my answering machine. And they were like, oh, we'd like to have you back. And then, well, you have to go and pick up a script. And I was like, oh, well, okay, fine. But then you had to sign your name because it was a non-disclosure, and I'd never done that before. I mean, I was so new to all of this. Is my first film, you know what I mean?
How old were you then?
I was, oh God, let's see. I was in my 20s. I want to say 24, 25, something like that. It was after undergrad. I'd wait a couple years before I went back to school again. And so, I'd done a lot of theater. I hadn't done any film. And so theater's a whole nother ball of wax when you're auditioning and whatnot. But so I signed, for the script, and I was, brought it home. I was like making sure nobody would even look at it. And so it was interesting to read it. But all along I kept thinking, oh, this is some B film, who's really in it? What I mean? It's a, boat movie, big deal. What I mean? I had no clue. And so, I read it, and then I went back, and there was another hotel audition, which was hilarious. And this time there was a videographer there, somebody shooting, and Mally was there. And so we, got down on the floor. It was the table scene where I'm, picking up the things, and we went through that a couple times and a couple other things. And she was really so generous as a scene partner, and she was so generous in some of the notes. Not many, but she was just like, this was really wonderful, and some of the feedback that she gave me, and even the guy who was doing the video, he was like shaking his head. It's just like, yay. So then I didn't hear back for a long time, and I was like, oh well, that was really fun. I got that. And I was supposed to do an auction. There was an auction for our program at the end of sort of the semester, and so I signed up for this big kind of role in it, and then I get a call back, and they're like, you have to be here. And I was just like, who am I gonna get to sub for me and all this other stuff. So luckily my roommate, I bribed her with a lot of different things for like doing dishes and cleaning for the rest of the month.
That's it too, isn't it? That's it too. It's like when you're starting out and you're not just running along or being invited to audition for things, you have to do these dreadful minimum wage jobs that you hope will be flexible enough. And of course, sod's law is that you'll have a shift just when you have the callback.
Always.
Life.
Always. That always is the case. And you have to decide, well, I could be fired, and is this worth it to me? And always the case is, yes, it's worth it to me, even if it's some dumb role. You know what I mean? This is my dream. This is what I want to do. I don't care if I'm a, waiter, although I've never done waiting. But,
it was your ship of dreams.
Yes, it was. Yeah, absolutely. And so, so then, I went through the whole thing and, did the whole callback, route, and, in the little section, or you want me to read for you,
yes.
Comes in.
It's actually
what was
perfect.
I'm just curious before you do that, Amy, what was so your initial audition was the scene after Billy Zane's character has destroyed the table.
Yes.
For the callback scene, what was the callback scene?
It was the table. It was also improving the end, which was like, what do I do for that? So I just threw myself up against some upholstery, and I was hanging on for dear life, trying to pretend like the ship is sinking. I didn't know what to do. You know what I mean? I just went with it. And so,
I just had a very odd visual of you holding on
and
to
now we have the
upholstery.
indelible
Upholstery.
image of you and your knickers, your bloomers.
Yes,
sliding down.
I was holding on to a chair and just kind of
the bloomers feature in the documentary. I'll have to know.
Fantastic!
Little sidebar. We did some reenactment with the stunt team in Atlanta. And the young woman that played you, I had to go on eBay because I knew the bloomers. Everyone knows the bloomers.
Yes.
And she wore the bloom. I found them on eBay or Amazon. She wore the bloomers and the skirt, and they were pulling her along to give the impression. And I wanted to show the behind the scenes, so the green screen was all there. The mechanics that what you don't see. And they were like, I'm going, where are the bloomers? She's like, well, I'm wearing them. I said, so I had to go and sort of like delicately these bloomers that I had gone to so much trouble to because it was, I can't say it was fun watching you down the deck.
It's a very memorable image from the film, for sure. Like same thing with Christina Crawford in Mommy Dearest with the panties when she was getting strangled. Some things you just can't forget.
Exactly. That's funny.
All right. Give us. We of course hear from you in the documentary with your recollections, but here we have something that's not in the documentary. We want you to read.
Certainly. Tuesday was another humid day. I planned plenty of time for the commute and freshening up at Saks Fifth Avenue, the best bathroom on that side of town. However, as I rounded the corner onto Park Avenue, I discovered the address I received was not the right one. Instead of the Regency Hotel, I was in the lobby of some investment firm. Frantic, I ran up to the doorman. I uttered some incoherent sentence, which remarkably he understood and pointed me in the right direction and assured me that I was only 10 blocks away. 10 blocks away. Of course, noontime traffic hit and Park Avenue was jammed with nary an available taxi in sight. Not that I would have been able to move had I found one. I had only a few minutes to spare and took off flying down the street to the hotel. Displaying the most athleticism I have ever displayed in my life, I made it to the hotel with 2 minutes to spare. I was technically not late. This made me ecstatic. I worked my way up to the room and knocked on the door. No response. I assumed that maybe there was someone auditioning in there, and I waited a minute before sensing something was wrong and knocked again. This time, a red-faced gentleman who had clearly drunk his lunch that afternoon answered the door with a, "Yeah, what?" I'm here for the callback. That's on the 20th floor. They changed the rooms. Now I was technically late. I was devastated and sick to my stomach from the heat and the news, and I took off running in search of the nearest elevator and the new suite number. Taking the only substantial breath of air during the entire fiasco, I knocked on the door, and a very nice woman answered. I panted out my name and a brief explanation of what had transpired and an apology for being late, and then from around the corner I hear, "You're not late. You're right on time. Hi, I'm James Cameron."
My gosh, yes, yes. Those moments in our lives that are the beginning of something. And this is what has come about over and over in the documentary is we have been dining out on these stories for 25 years, and here we are 25 years later, still just excited about the process. And that story illustrates perfectly the life of that actress who was at drama school, who'd never been in a film before, who'd done all these auditions, who was doing a day job, and then you're standing in front of and even then you still don't know what's ahead of you. What was it like when you first walked onto the set and there you were in costume and it was really happening?
It was incredible, but I was kind of in denial about it all in a good way because I would, had my blinders on. I'm like, this is the job I'm going to do. I know what my lines are. I showed up to I was there for the table reads. So even before we started shooting in Mexico, I was so lucky to be there because at least I could sit around the table from everyone. I got a little bit acclimated, but there was one take when I was in the chamber with Rose, and I'm talking about, and this part was cut from the film, but I'm talking about how the sheets are so new and I never got to experience this type of thing before. And I go up to her and I'm telling her all this, kind of excitedly and having this moment with her. And then I couldn't remember one word. I couldn't remember my name. Wouldn't know what day it is. I didn't know anything because it just dawned on me, and I'm still get goosebumps to this day. It dawned on me that I was making a film, like a real film, and there was a camera there, and there were people out there, and this was Kate Winslet, and I'm in the scene, and I just Kate, I think she said something to the fact that of like, you just realized you're in a film, right? I was like, yes, and she gave me a big hug. She's like, "Oh, it's okay, darling, it's okay."
And when you think how young she was, and she had a little bit of success with Heavenly Creatures, and I think she'd done Sense and Sensibility at that point. And
I'm not sure.
I know she had just done oh, now everybody's going to be looking on IMDb and telling me I'm in the wrong order.
It's okay.
She had just done Hamlet. She'd played Ophelia.
Oh, yes. Ophelia. Yep.
And she was beginning to really, become substantiated. And,
yes.
But still, she had no idea. None of us had any
no clue at all. And here's little me from Michigan. I mean, I'm just like, I'm in Mexico. I'm shooting a film, and it was just, it just really like bowled me over. And then, of course, they shot me my line, and James Cameron was like, "Keep going," and I was like, I'm sorry, I can't. I just can't. I don't know what my words are. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So then they gave me my line, and it was fine. We did another take. It was fine. But for that one moment, I was just like, I mean, literally, it struck me that I was actually doing a film, and I never have had that feeling up until that point, of course, because I'd never made a film. But all those other takes went along fine because I was kind of like, okay, this is da 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 da. But then it really sank in of like what I was doing. And then, I mean, for anybody who, of course, was on set, they built that set for this film. So and the things that were there were for this film. And then you started to see the facade go up against the ocean, and that was for the film. And I mean, like and of course they wouldn't let you walk anywhere. So yeah, I was in a van going from here to there, and it took 2 seconds. I was like, like, but I can walk. And they're like, no, you should be in the van. I was like, okay.
Where were they when you had your audition? You should have, they should have had the van for you then.
Oh my God, precisely. Yes.
I call it Queen for the Day. I remember when we first did the first class dining room scenes.
Yes.
A whole bunch of us had to do that 2-minute van drive.
Yes.
I remember Rosalind Ayres with that headdress she wears.
Oh,
it's
yes.
getting stuck on the top of the van while she's trying to get into a people mover, one of those transit vans. And we're all sitting there like we're going to this really expensive, very high-end 100-year-old wedding.
Yes.
And we had to be sort of toddled and then all pulled out again, wearing corsets and stepping so you didn't trip. The men were all stepping on our trains. It was a whole thing to get us from the wardrobe and makeup block to the set.
Yep.
Amy, you talk about how welcoming and supportive Kate was with you. Tell me about your memories of working with Frances and Billy.
Oh, they were terrific. And David Warner, especially, I have to say, I mean, we would ride the van together from the hotel and, he would recant some of his stories and ask me how I was. And I knew who he was, but I really didn't know who he was till after the fact. And then I was like, I was just in a van with David Warner. But Frances was amazing and Billy was really sweet. And
tell us about working with Leo.
Leo was great.
Leo.
and really, really sweet. I mean, I have to say that, we were doing some interiors of the chamber, the bed chamber where Kate was. And I remember being off to the side and, I still had the deer in the headlights kind of look. And he just came up to me and was, kind of chatting and very sweet and welcoming, as well. Everybody was just very, very kind. And our etiquette coach, she was always so lovely. And, the person who dressed me, I think her name was Marcia. She was amazing. Like everybody was just so nice, from all, the PAs were incredible. I mean, I was nobody and, they're just like, can we do anything for you? How can we help you? And I'm just like, I am nobody. You don't have to help me. Go help somebody else who has clout. So
but looking back, there are no small parts. And
no.
Everybody's job on a film set, the sharp pointy end of their job, if you're
Yep.
in that scene that day, is that we know that now. And
Yes.
I still appreciate it so much. It really just it adds to helping put you at ease. I think even, I've been nervous on almost every set I've worked on,
absolutely.
because maybe you're not the lead and everyone there is established, and it's lovely when you get that film community, even for that short while, that embraces you so much. And now, of course, you are a filmmaker yourself. Not only are you teaching film studies, but you are making films. Tell us a little bit about your latest project.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for asking. This summer, I just wrapped a feature film with my producing partner, James Evans, and Tova Feldschuh, and Tibor Feldman, and Julie Halston, and several others, came aboard to shoot this with us. And it was quite a feat. We did it in 16 days, as you know. that is like, a nervous breakdown waiting to happen. But we did it. And we're in post-production right now, and the first act is shaping up beautifully. We're on this act 2 and act 3. We're doing a little bit of fundraising for our for our post-production, because we spent some of the post-production allocated funds on production. Because
what's it called? What's the film called?
Oh, Dirty Rhetoric. That's what it's called. And so, some of those funds, we had a fire alarm one day, which, you never know what's going to happen on set. And that took up, one day of our shoot, which was unfortunate. So that's why we had to shift some of our budget the other way.
We'll put a link to that fundraiser in the notes.
Great. Thank you so
And
much.
James Cameron went over budget significantly, and it all worked out for him.
Yes. I remember the etiquette coach. We were
Lynn
walking
Hockney.
together. Lynn Hockney, yes, and she was amazing. And we were walking, I think it was to the dining tent or something like that. And she's like, you probably will never work on another film like so it's really lovely. But yeah,
she was right, wasn't she? We haven't ever.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was huge. I mean, that was a giant film. So, and no matter the size of the film, they're always quite a feat. You know what I mean? And it could be the most expensive film you know, at that time being shot, or it could be a feature film shot in 16 days. And, you know, I think everyone who comes aboard on film, which I really love so much about the whole community, is everybody dedicates themselves, you know, 10,000%, whether it's a giant film or it's a tiny little film. So,
And
you
if
know,
you don't, you kind of don't get asked back. Like, I
no,
say this to young filmmakers, you know, I want to be in a movie.
yeah,
I want to be a producer. I want to be this. I don't really know yet. I say, get yourself a job as a runner or a
mm-hmm,
PA,
yep,
and just be present and show initiative, and
mm-hmm,
don't mind maybe getting yelled at a bit. Don't take it personally, because it's always on a time crunch. And if you don't
yep,
suck, you'll get invited back again and again
absolutely,
and again, and you can work up the, it's a meritocracy, you know, you
mm-hmm,
can work up the ranks really quite quickly,
mm-hmm.
if you really are passionate. You have, it's a profession you have to be passionate about, because
Oh, sure, absolutely.
I have a history question for you. Having
Uh-oh.
so, although your character of Trudy was a fictitious maid,
Mm-hmm,
there were certainly Trudy-like people aboard the Titanic.
mm-hmm.
Did being in Titanic create any interest in the true story of Titanic for you? Did you become a Titaniac for a while?
I did actually, and it was funny because my hometown, they approached me after Titanic, and they'd seen a, you know, newspaper article or whatever, and they were like, "Hey, have you seen the I think it was biography or autobiography of Violet Jessup?" And Violet Jessup was a maid on the Titanic at the time, and she had her own account. And so I actually did, with full orchestra behind me, a reading from that, from the perspective of Violet Jessup, as, you know, channeled through Trudy Bolt ish, you know, during the
Yeah.
time. So that was really lovely, and I got to like, you know, and it was really packed, which, you know, for our town was pretty good. And so people, you know, were really interested in what that was and who these people were. And, you know, it wasn't just the Astors that, you know, everyone was interested in. It was the people who were down below, and, you know, who suffered a fate that, you know, if they weren't able to get out, you know, was just horrific. So it was really, really lovely to be able to do some research on that, and to do reading of her, you know, account, her actual account, with this orchestra. So that was pretty cool.
If only things could have worked out better for Trudy in the end. But
Yes, I know.
in
I
your
was
audition,
actually happy though, I have to say. I was glad
you
I
and your
died.
bloomers. But you said in your callback you had to imagine, improvise what it would be like to be on a sinking ship, and you're throwing yourself around the hotel room.
Yes.
But you were not hired to be a stunt person. You were hired to be
No.
an actor, and then you ended up having to actually sort of do stunts in a
Sort
way.
of.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that looked like a stunt to me.
It was a stunt, but I have to say, and I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this, but they did cut to an actual stunt double toward the end of the run down the
you'd
actual
never be able to
walkway.
tell. You'd never be able to tell. The bloomers. We're all looking at the bloomers.
Exactly, but the stunt double had like rollers on their I think their life vest of some sort, so they really made them fly down the actual incline. But I did do stunts because I was hanging on for dear life onto, onto the banister there, and they would whipped me out of the scene. Some two people had my feet in back of me. I'm hanging on, so I'm literally up in the air. And then, you know, I had to do that several times, and then, you know, go down a little ways, and then out of frame, of course. So, but yeah, at the end of it, you know, they were like, maybe we should give you some hip pads. I'm like, maybe you should. You know what I mean? Because the bruises the next day were incredible. But, you know, I was okay. I was fine with it. I was delirious again because I was so happy to be working on a film, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, I was really happy. I was excited that I actually got a nice close up. I was so excited that I got to actually, you know, be taken off, you know, and out of camera, you know, in such a way, and that Trudy did, you know, actually suffer on camera, which was great for me because I thought it was really, really exciting. So
Well,
she
an
didn't
artist
just go
must suffer, so
exactly.
that seems somehow appropriate. The film gets so much rotation on television. You can, you know,
Yes.
you're constantly running into it.
Yes.
When you come across it, I personally, I have to stop and watch it for the rest of the film. Like I can't,
Mm-hmm.
no matter where I hit it, I have to watch at least till the ship sinks.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see when you see yourself from 25 years ago?
I have to say, I haven't seen it on television because I really don't have television. I know it's terrible, but it's something that I don't have. But I hear it often from people. I just saw you die last night. I just saw you die last night, and so that's always usually what somebody will end up telling me, and they can't stop either, and so they end up watching the entire film at whatever point they encounter me or whatnot. I have only, let's see, I think I saw it. Ooh, one other time than at the opening that we had in LA. I can't remember exactly what
You're
it
due.
was.
You are due
I
to see that
know.
film
I
again.
wanted to go on Valentine's Day when they did the re-release, but I unfortunately couldn't go. But it's just fun to see.
I have seen it. I saw it at the cast and crew screening in Century City.
Yep.
There were so many of
Yep.
us, we had to take up 2 cinemas next to each
Yes.
other to watch it.
Yes.
And then I've seen it on television and bored to death anybody who is watching with me. Oh, that's so and so. Oh my God, every little moment because it pings right back to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if you're not in the scene, you knew the person because of all the the behind the scenes and the margaritas at the Real Del Mars, which are now notorious to all of our listeners because the margaritas always come up. And
Yeah.
and even in the
I
film,
always wanted to go for those margaritas, but I was doing
you were
homework
too
in my
dedicated,
yes,
darling.
I was
You were
doing
learning
homework in my
lines for your plays back in
hotel.
New York, and we were drinking margaritas.
Yes, it reminded me of Safi on Absolutely Fabulous. Like she would be, that's how I kind of felt. I
Yeah, and
was
I'd be
channeling
Idina
Safi.
Monsoon. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. No, where was I going with that? It's the old
Watching yourself and seeing it again.
and then I saw it. I watched it before I filmed all of the actors, all of you lot, because I thought I should. Of course, it was sort of in my mind, but I wanted a fresh approach, and that was a couple, 18 months ago. And then I went to see the 3D re-release.
Oh,
And
how was that?
Okay, so I've really only seen it 4 times max, and not all the way through if I caught it on TV. All those lines just jump out at you that are, he didn't get the Oscar for the original screenplay because there are some kind of
I
slightly
know.
odd moments of, but now they are just, especially knowing all the super fans, they're all just make it count, and do you want to go to a real party, and I should like a cup of tea when I return to my all of these things that was still in my mind even after only seeing it a handful of times.
We got a comment on one of our podcast episodes that I thought was brilliant, and I'm paraphrasing it now, but it was something to the effect of addressing Alexandra and me, lady and gentlemen, it has been a privilege to listen to you tonight. So and it's these become pop culture phrases.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're in it. We're in the pop culture, whether we like it or not. And of course, I've just added to it with my documentary because
Yes.
there's so many untold stories.
Yeah, I'm so glad you did it.
You've read like a half a page from your diary, and you kept a diary as you went. So it's it really is nose to tail what you experienced in 1996. And then others of us wrote it retrospectively. They were like, what was my audition like? What was it like the first day on set, or my costume fitting, or being on the poop deck, or in that tank? Some people were
I know,
for a long time, but as well had extraordinary experiences of reenacting those dreadfully sad and tragic moments. But even then, the film, the documentary, literally just scratches the surface, and dare I say, is the tip of the iceberg, because there are so many
unintended.
Unintended. There are so many stories. So I'm seriously thinking about gathering us all together and saying, let's just publish them all, and then whoever wants can read the whole thing, because they're fascinating to me. Every single one of us, like every single passenger on the ship, has a story.
It was a unique experience, and Amy, you're so charming in the documentary. I mean, you're charming here too.
Thank you.
Your stories in the documentary are charming, and you talk with wonderful detail about the experience of your dressing room and being on the set, and the bottle of champagne. You
yes,
on that in the documentary, and it obviously, Titanic holds a very special place in your very full life, but it has that special part. So we're so grateful that you shared that with us.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, and thank you for asking me again. I think it was important to do this piece, and I'm so glad that you did, Alexandra. Because
I have one quick question though. You teach film studies at Stony Brook in New York.
Yep.
How do your students, when your students find out? I mean, they weren't even born when this came out. How do you keep it a secret? Is it in your bio? What happens when they find out?
I never mention it. I never mention on the first day of class. But I always like clock. Okay, now how many days is it going to take before they catch on? And so, inevitably it's around, I would say 4 to 6 weeks when they're like, Professor, I just realized, I just looked you up. Oh, you're a Titanic. Why don't you ever talk about that? And I'm like, well, I'd be happy to. If you've got a question, I'd be happy to bring it up. I said, but we're all beginning filmmakers here. And so, if I had something to share, of course I'll share it. And it was, amazing experience. And I do talk about like working on very big films. I never say exactly what it is. But it's really wonderful for them to discover it, and then to ask their questions very sheepishly, and how's Leo, how is Kate, what I mean, all of the typical ones. And but I always do relay, especially about the crew and how people come together, and what each department and the the key crew and how much they give to a production. Yes, they're making pretty good money, we're all making pretty good money, but still it's that dedication to your craft, and that's what I really like to on. But usually it's around 4 to 6 weeks.
That's so interesting, isn't it? That's so they suddenly go, oh my God. I think it's incredibly valuable too, in a way that you're sort of looking back and giving back to people, because there's no substitute for experience. And to be able to talk about that, because you are a professional actress and you are teaching, there's a wonderful sort of depth of knowledge that they wouldn't otherwise have. Because
absolutely. And even shooting the film that I shot this summer, I was production designer, I was also the actress, I was also the producer. So wearing all the hats, and what does that mean, and that type of thing. So
you also have a film festival. My film, your film festival.
That's correct.
We're cross-pollinating here.
And you can lace a mean bodice.
Yes.
I don't know if you know this, but this has come up since we recorded you in New York. But one of our super fans, Ilka, she makes the beautiful reproductions of.
Oh, yes.
And her husband has to pin her into them, the hooks and eyes.
Yes.
She can't do it herself. So they've dubbed him Trudy.
I love it.
Fernando is Trudy Bolt.
I love it. I think that's amazing. Yes.
Well, you're part of the Titanic iconic legend now. I mean, that will always be with you. You will always be Trudy Bolt to fans.
And I also want to mention that if true to Titanic fans would like to meet us in person, Amy and I will both be in Las Vegas in August the 9th, for 3 days at Titanic Con, which is a huge, they're celebrating the 25-year discovery of the big piece, which is the exhibition in Las Vegas. And we will be there meeting people. There'll be people who were on Robert Ballard's original expedition when they found the Titanic. And there's about 10 of us, some in my films, all in James Cameron's film, signing autographs, taking selfies, and basically, continuing the legacy.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review. And if you'd like to hear more podcasts like this, hit the subscribe button. For information on where you can see Ship of Dreams, Titanic Movie Diaries, go to shipofdreamsfilm.com. Titanic Talk is a production of Ship of Dreams Film Limited.